Outside Legal Services, and Rebecca Bolnick. And we have, and we have another Rebecca Astorga, and her information is up on the screen there for later. I believe Peggy Staples is also here. Yes, there she is. Okay. So we have a great team here to talk to you about AZ Safe and any updates and information sharing for next year.
Hi everybody, my name is Carrie O'Brien. I'm the Chief Privacy Officer at ADE, and we're here today to talk to you about AZ Safe. You may not know, but our grant that enabled us to create the AZ Safe database has ended. So we've been contemplating internally about whether we should maintain that database. And we've decided that for fiscal year 17, we're going to maintain the AZ Safe as it currently is. As always, you're not required to submit every element within AZ Safe regarding sequence, but we will be required to include the elements related to special education students because we use that data to report to the feds. So Rebecca Astorga is the new person at ADE in school safety who will be your contact. If you have any questions about AZ Safe, her email's up on the slide. Sorry, we didn't make our own slide. So. And Rebecca will be here to answer questions if you have any pressing questions. But what we're hoping to get from you today is information about how you can use the AZ Safe reports, if at all, so that we can make a better informed decision about how to move forward with that database.
So the reason why we're asking this question is that as we looked at the requirements, really for you and for us, and what needed to be reported federally and for under state law, it was unclear. And then looking at the history of AZ Safe and how you all had used it in the past, we know that it was basically a resource for you on your side, all of those elements that are not required to come to the state, that some LEAs, some schools use those as their discipline database and reporting system. And we were thinking about, is that something we should incorporate into other systems, other reporting mechanisms at ADE and just require the pieces that we need? Or is that, is this a resource that you really rely on? You have no other mechanism by which to do it on your side for yourselves. Does that make sense? So we wanted to get some feedback on that, and we thought this would probably be one of the best groups to ask that question. Does anybody have any comments or thoughts? Yeah. Do we microphone or should we just?
This is Tempe Elementary, and we only use AZ Safe just for reporting. We have our own student management system where we put everything else in there. We use that for reporting.
Is that just like sort of by show of hands, who else is in that same situation? So they
use EduPoint.
So EduPoint. Is there anyone here from EduPoint? Yeah. There's like a module or something that's for that purpose. So I saw a lot of hands. Is there anyone who's in a different kind of situation?
Just my comment.
Okay, I have 5 schools, and my principals have all chose to use our SIS, which is Schoolmaster, for all of their discipline. And in safe schools, we only put the required documents. So we primarily use Schoolmaster for chewing gum, whatever, and we only send the required documents. And we looked at the online safe schools and chose to stay with Schoolmaster for our uploads.
Anyone in a different boat?
So would we harm anyone by turning off AZ Safe?
As the reporting side, right. One lone hand in the back. We could help you personally if that's
My superintendent actually likes your reports where he can look
Okay, her comment is that her superintendent likes the reports that are generated by AZ Safe and that they were useful.
So, okay. Yeah, that's interesting because there, you know, and when you make that comment, do you mean things that are outside of the scope of what's required to submit to ADE?
No, we just said what,
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
we just said what's required.
But what your superintendent likes to look at, is it the stuff that you send to us, or?
It's the stuff we said to you and the way that you guys hold it.
Okay, so they like our reports better than the vendor?
Yeah, we're a small charter school. We also like the ability to do direct reporting through AZ Safe, because we very rarely have more than 5 to 7 special ed kids, and it's not viable for us to buy the module for the our SIS.
Yeah, that was kind of what we were wondering about really was some of our smaller scope LEAs or charters who might not have sort of that collective fund available. Is there anyone else who would be concerned about the cost of, I guess, am I saying that right, a module? Is that what it is? It's like a, okay. Is there anyone else who's in that same boat? I mean, I'm sure you're not solely involved. We all like free more than.
Well, because the special ed reporting is not going to go away, but the other elements that we had to collect in addition to that were within AZ Safe, that grant ended, so the obligation is no longer with AD. So we just want to make a well-informed decision. So if you think about it and you have some additional thoughts for us, please email Rebecca, and we'll kind of continue the conversation and try to make a good decision.
We had a couple other questions. Yes, yeah.
So with reporting then, just be automatic as part of ASA, or we still have to create files and,
So the question is, oh, you mean like, if we got rid of AZ Safes, would it just be part of?
For the special ed.
So, well, I think that's part of the question. We don't know what we would, the question is, if we stop doing what we're doing now, what should our next option be? And that's exactly, so that's what you would prefer? Yeah. Is that something, do other people agree that they would, if we made a change, that it would be nice if it was just part of basics, is that what you said? And it was something just, you guys like clicking the button.
You need to make sure, if that happens through AZADS, that the data goes anonymously.
So the comment was, if that happens in AZADS, the data has to go anonymously?
An anonymous student ID number.
So with an anonymous student ID number, I'm not sure.
I believe all we report to the feds is aggregated data, so none of the data would be leaving ADE in an identifiable form.
Yeah, we never send any data to the feds.
But I understand that, but the deal was when AZ Safe came online years ago was that we could mask who the students were when we sent the information to you because of the privacy around this.
So I know that you can,
So
but
if you're going to make it so it can go through AZADS, we still need the ability to mask the data.
Okay, why?
Privacy for our students.
Right, so I think that ADE would have a legitimate educational reason to receive that data, but that's something we can certainly revisit.
No, because all you're sending, you don't need student level data, you guys just need aggregate numbers.
this is gonna start to get out of our level of expertise. I'm looking for help.
So the one thing I can say is, as part of AZ, it's been on the roadmap to look at this data. We haven't looked at it yet and gotten requirements to determine how it's going to be done, but it's on the future roadmap that
right.
we have
Yeah,
to
and
talk
that's what we're here to gather feedback about. But so Carrie didn't mention that she's also a lawyer. She is not the department's lawyer, that the AG's office represents us, but she's our our esteemed legal expert, and anytime we have a question about, like, does it have to be anonymous, what does the law say? Carrie has this amazing ability to find the answer for us, so
But we hear
we'll
your
just-
concern,
yeah.
and we'll certainly look at that to make sure that we're collecting the information in the format that we should.
Yeah.
Carrie, can I make a suggestion over here? Those of us that were here when AZ Safe started, the person identifier piece, the student identifier piece was a big deal.
Okay.
It's a big deal to our parents. It's a big deal to many of us in this room. So my suggestion to you guys is to put together some sort of a group, a smaller group than this, to discuss these issues before you make any plans.
That's great.
Because otherwise you're gonna be standing in front of a fire line that you don't wanna be in front of.
Sure, yeah, and we should also say that, you may have noticed that there's, like, all of our faces are new. There's been quite a bit of turnover and changes, in the staff, so we're definitely coming up to speed. We are able to rely on some, Barb says hi, and she says, welcome to Rebecca, and to be nice to her. Barb Mikla, who is no longer in school safety, but we definitely don't want to recreate the wheel, so if there are notes or anything that you guys have from any of those previous conversations, that'd be great. And I would say that probably, I love that suggestion, and maybe if you are interested in being part of that working group or discussions or whatever, that you can contact Rebecca and we can put together, I'm gonna speak for that.
And we have another question.
Just, we still have to submit next year changes, right?
Correct.
Same way as-
Yes, and for 17, nothing's changing.
Correct.
So what we're talking about is looking at changes that, how we might want to make changes for 18. So suggestions like we want it in AZEDs, or we don't want, SACE IDs, or we want to only aggregate. That kind of stuff is what we'd like to look at because, in addition to what discussions happened a few years back, the laws and requirements have changed slightly.
Well, and also, we're trying to be thoughtful about it because, we don't have this grant paying for the AZ Safe database anymore. We know we have a smaller reporting obligation, so, we don't want to harm schools that rely on the reports that can be generated by AZ Safe, but we're trying to weigh the costs and benefits, knowing that it'll cost the state money to continue maintaining the database.
Are there other
Appreciate your thoughts.
questions or suggestions?
We'll take your question too, just a moment. I just wanted to clarify that if you go to the AZ Safe website, it does have Barb Nicklin's name and contact on that, and that will transition and change to my name, so I'm putting up my email today so that you have that. Currently, inquiries are being forwarded from Barb to me. And so I'll just take this opportunity. There's been a lot of similar questions that have come. One is that because SACE had not adopted the new codes, neither did AZ Safe, so use your old codes going forward until any change or updates have been made. And as far as the due date, historically it's been early July, although a specific date has not been given. And so those are two questions that I've received a lot from the field, so I just wanted to take the opportunity to share that with you. You had a question?
Yes.
Yeah, just a suggestion to kind of define the terms that you're using. When you say AZ Safe, like for me personally, I didn't even know you could submit individual student information to AZ Safe because I've always done uploads. And so when you say we're thinking about getting rid of AZ Safe, I'm like, great, no more uploads. But that's not really what you're talking about, right? You're just talking about basically the SACE Online of AZ Safe. Getting rid of the entry piece, not the upload piece, not the reporting section.
Right, we're talking about, there are changes in the requirements for us, and we have this existing technology, and do we want to maintain that technology? Do we want to transfer the requirements for the upload or the reporting or whatever it is to a different technology, such as somebody, would prefer that it's all in AZ? Do we want to keep it? What about reporting? Because there's two sides to it. Well, three really, right? There's the submission piece, there's the database itself, and then there's the reporting aspect. So, and right now AD is shouldering, as Carrie said, shouldering the cost of all of those. And so our grant ran out and our requirements, well, the requirements changed. So do we want, we have to look as an agency where we want to put the money. And if this room had unanimously said, oh, please God, do not get rid of the reporting from, AZ Safe, we would have said, okay, that's a really strong message from you, but that's not really the sense that I got. You know, so that was the kind of feedback that we were looking for, is what do you use, what do you need, what do you care, care a lot about, so. Were there others? Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I understood about the old code. So you're talking about like the sped codes and information that came, that the new codes are adopted by ASCUS, but the old codes are still being adopted by SAFE. So SAFE still looks at the old code because SAFE still looks at the old code because of SAFE. Right?
So the question was about the codes. So MIID is the correct term, but SAY still uses the old representation of that code, and so that is why that needs to be continued to be used in AZ SAY
For the uploads,
for the uploads, yes.
For this year.
For
What about next
This year and next year, so
until any changes or updates have been made.
until you get an announcement, continue as you have been.
Yes.
But are the SPED folks for SPED transactions saying the same thing, that the old codes in 17 are being maintained?
Can you repeat that?
It's my understanding that all of the changes in AZ Safe are, have already been, have already been made to be in compliance with Rosa's law. So those changes have already been implemented, and that's my understanding.
Was that the question? So Rosa's law? Was that your question?
No. If I'm understanding correctly, you said use the old SPED codes in AZ Safe for this year and next fiscal year. So the uploads to AZ Safe out of our SIS are to contain old SPED codes. But yet in AZ Eds, we transition to the new codes. So how does our SIS, how do we do that? How do you do that?
Hold on, these are super technical questions, and lawyer and researcher don't always know the answer. Thanks, translation.
I'm referring to the MIMR codes, and is that?
Yes.
Okay.
For this year, we're fine. It's next year that we'll be in AZEDs and we'll be using the newer codes. And so that's the question, is what happens next year? So,
I can elaborate on that.
thank you.
Hi, my name is Chris Brown. I'm with DSS and I used to be with Title I. Briefly to your question about using codes transmitting to AZEDs, but you may have a module which submits to AZ Safe. So we're talking about using the old codes for these disabilities and the new ones. We're going to approach this. I'm going to talk with some of the architects about this specific issue. We may end up doing a back-end translation for it, so you don't have to update the module. What we don't want to do is make a new standard for the module on the presumption, because we don't even know the output of what AZ Safe is going to look like. So that will be looked at and addressed, but it is on the forefront topic.
And you'll let our vendors know, because that's who really needs to know.
Correct.
Okay.
So we just don't know at this point in time if we want to present to the vendors on how they transmit that code, for example.
Yeah, we're really at the beginning of trying to figure out what we're going to do. So these kinds of like detailed comments and feedback is really important for us to make sure that we do what's easiest, best, cleanest, all of that. So thank you for that comment. And rest assured that ESS is heavily involved in this decision and this process. So definitely they're on top of that kind of thing. So thank you for that.
Okay, I'm a little confused on why it matters what SPED code is the current code or the previous code, because when we upload, I thought when we upload to you on our discipline, if it was an infraction that is required to be uploaded, then all we're sending is, yes, the child's in SPED, or no, the child isn't in SPED, not what the disability is. So I don't know why this code is being discussed. I'm confused.
I don't either, so I'm going to let some of our... That's a great question. I understood all of the English, but not what it meant.
Apparently, it's my understanding, if you do type in a SACE number and use it as a lookup, there's a lot of back-end reference and data that gets pulled with it. The old code and the new code comes into play here, because if you're talking about systems that now transfer on to AZEDs and use the new code, there are supposedly might be mismatches during that process. If that happens, it just crashes. That's what we're investigating, and that's what we're trying to find out. So I didn't try to make it more confusing, But the bottom line is we'll have some type of resolution probably in the next 30 to 60 days about this, if it is going to be an issue.
I think there was another question.
Yes.
So, two things. One, whatever you guys decide, please be sure to communicate that out to schools who have asked that, okay?
So
Even
the
if it's
comment
we're
was,
not
please-
doing anything.
Yeah, whatever we decide,
Whatever we
please,
decide, make sure that
please
it's-
communicate that.
Yes, that's the first thing. The second thing is, you're addressing the AZ Safe issue to a group that some of us don't have anything to do with that at our school. So I just want to be sure that you are communicating this with other organizations that would address other people on our administration team who might actually be dealing with that because, for example, I don't.
So the comment was, not everybody in this room deals with AZ Safe, knows what it is. They may have other people at their district who are responsible for that. So wanted to make sure that we're communicating with them. I very much appreciate that comment. We figured this was a good place to catch a lot of people, and really because of this technical piece of the, the system of upload and all that other stuff, that you guys would have some really good comments. Please, I'm assuming that we have contacts for all of the safety people at all the districts. I'm not at all involved in that yet. So that we will be reaching out to them, but definitely, if you are not the one at your district, if you wouldn't mind kind of summarizing what we talked about today and just have your person make sure to reach out to us, especially if they have any particular concerns or anything like that. Also, we didn't put together a slide or anything today because there wasn't a lot to say other than keep going. But would that be helpful? I mean, you guys put up your materials, right? Because we thought, like, well, maybe we can just go back and do one quick summary. So we can do that, and then you could share it among your district of who would be best.
And, maybe we'll reach out to our special ed directors across the state as well, since they would be valuable voices in this conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, a more specific question now. On AZ Safe.
Okay, I've been searching because my schools asked me about a specific rule that the laws had changed, and so did the rule change. And I looked all over your site and everywhere I could, I talked to you, to find my answer. So the question is, when the laws change, that actually end up changing the rule for what we submit. In this case, it was talking about knife, and the laws changed on knife. What is a knife? The law changed. So in Arizona, we have a different law than some states, but specifically the question from the principals was, is it 2 inches, 2.5 inches, 3 inches, whatever. In Arizona now, a knife is a knife. It's a sharpened object. It doesn't matter how long it is. But your rules still say, I believe 2.5 is reportable to ADE, and anything over that is reportable to the police and ADE. But it was very hard to find the answer. So as the laws change, maybe you have some place for us that have the old data to be able to see what's changed, what we need to change, what we need to be telling our people that are writing the kids up. Thank you.
Yeah, I think since our grant has ended, I don't know that we'll be doing that moving forward, but if we do decide to keep the database, we would obviously stay current with the law.
Agree with that.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you again for being here. Okay, before Randall gets started, I've asked Mark to come back and clarify some things that he said earlier, and refer back to the presentation that he's provided. So he's going to do that, and then we're going to have Randall talk to us about recording. Okay?
Or is it on here?
Okay.
So I need to clarify, and please understand that there's so much going on inside my head that I'm just like you and sometimes, so I'm gonna go back to a slide and show you where I had it on the slide and I read the slide. Chandler turning off, this was this week. They're turning back on with AZs to say dwell. They're not off permanently. All right, but, and that's the steps that I said on that slide, back, this slide. Turn off AZs to SACE. This is when Part 2 is live, but they're willing to wait a month because Part 2 is not live. Is turn off AZs. LA submits all transactions in AZs, make sure it's right. LA validates transactions in AZs. Turn on AZs to SACE 2.0. LA validates SACE, which should be the same or similar. If at that point we still have errors, then it goes into the manual process post the end of the year. At the end of this. If that caused confusion, then don't call school finance and say, oh my God, turn that off. No, I recommend you wait till AZs to SACE 2.0 is working. Because if you're already on AZ, you're already frustrated. I already walked all through that. You're frustrated because you can't match SACE. Well, we're fixing that as best as we can. Will it be 100%? 99.99, I hope. It'll probably be something that you'll say that didn't get there, and we'll have to fix that, give it 915 or something, or to SACE online or something. Okay? So I want you to understand that we heard you, that SACE and AZs don't match. So that we want to fix. And we're going to have it fixed by the end of May. And that's the process. So as if you're transitioning just now, and you want to do the same thing that Chandler did in anticipation of this, we will work with you during the transitional period to do that. That's fair to anybody that's transitioning now. Okay, I wish I could roll the film back and go back to August of last year. So did the people that went on AZs in August of last year. But I can't. This is where I'm at. Is there any more questions? Does that help clarify? Did that help clarify, everybody?
Yes.
Please don't leave here. If you've not transitioned, this is an option. Okay? If you've not transitioned, I have a UAT environment to test. It is tied to SACE. I have a SACE UAT environment, which I had to do. So that's where you would test. Because you don't want to pollute prod. You don't pollute prod. And I got to keep, it's hard enough to keep all this straight with two systems. Okay?
Mark, I have a question. Did you say you're looking at May for this?
End of May.
End of May for this?
End of May. That's our goal.
We haven't transitioned yet, but we're going to. Would it be in our best interest, if we wanted to follow this, to let school finance know that we want to turn off the AZs?
You can let your transition team that talks to you know that.
Okay.
And
that would be the first step, though.
That would be the first
We'd
step.
still go forward with our transition, but we just wouldn't have them move the AZs to.
Especially if you're at this point in the year where your SACE is really looking good.
Exactly. That's exactly it. That's true.
Then I'd want to do what you're doing.
But we have that option at this point, and we can.
You have it because you've not transitioned, and this will be available at the end of May. But there's that, just don't freak out for the 3 or 4 weeks that you can't see it, as long as we all understand it. Because we know kids are going to move in May.
So how does this work though when you have data that's, that you know should be in SACE but is in AZs?
That's a very complex algorithm. I'd love to sit and talk to you about it.
But when you turn it on, is it automatically going to
Yes.
sync it up and then correct that data without you having to initiate it on your
In the very
system?
high level,
Do?
yes. Very high level. Without us getting very complex and bringing up an architecture, right over in here, to tell you how, or Satya, to tell you how we've done it. We did a POC so that we could prove. You don't build something unless you pilot it, and it was very positive. So we're very confident. Again, I say that with knowing that every time I say something, Murphy's right around the corner. And Murphy's gonna knock on my door, and I don't wanna, but what did I say at the very beginning? Your SIS is the checkbook. At the end of the day, we're gonna make you right. Let's just get through that period.